Top Game with your host, Sammy Castro. Episode 33, Master Gunnery Sergeant Jeff Rooke. This discussion features a deep dive into the career and personal philosophy of the Command Senior Enlisted Leader of Marine Detachment, Monterey, California. I was humbled once by a mentor who shared with me, Sammy, you're great, but Jeff, he's got all of us beat when it comes down to just being the kind of leader Marines love to follow. I've always been grateful for that level of intimate and radical candor from my brothers and sisters. And the truth is, that characterization is completely accurate. In just over 2 hours, we explore the evolution of our 24 plus years of military service, the challenges faced, and achievements along the way. Smiles and cries. Key themes include the significance of mentorship, the impact of personal growth on professional roles, and the continuous journey towards improvement. I was invited by the Marine Detachment Monterey Command Team to be the guest speaker at their birthday ball. It was the opportunity to return home, where our family's journey began, and experience it from a completely different perspective. During a guided discussion with some of the Marine students while there, I asked Jeff if he would be willing to record this episode, and what follows is a result of that challenge. Some of the themes we explore include leadership development. The conversation frequently circles back to the importance of strong leadership and the role it plays in shaping careers and personal development. Mentorship. Both of us emphasize the value of mentorship, both in receiving guidance and in providing it to others. And true mentorship is when both the mentor and the mentee grow together, learning from each other's experiences and perspectives. There is indeed a reciprocal nature to this thing of ours, and we touch on that. Steel sharpens steel. Finally, adaptation and learning. The dialogue highlights the necessity of adapting to changing environments and the constant pursuit of knowledge. It's not just about changing what you do, it's about evolving who you are to meet these new challenges. The day you stop learning is the day you stop leading. But without further delay, let's get into it. Disclaimer, the views and opinions expressed on Top Game are those of the producers and or the guests appearing on the program and do not reflect the views and opinions of the United States Marine Corps or the Department of Defense. Thanks for tuning in. How's your mic level on your headphones?
It's good.
Yeah. So we're live. What did you think when I asked you to be on the podcast in front of your Marines?
I was like, Sammy got me into this. First he's going to hold my bottle in my hat hostage for about 9 months. But whenever you ask me in front of some young devils, do you have the courage to sit across the table from me? Of course, the answer is yes.
I wouldn't have asked if I didn't think I already knew the answer.
Yeah.
But I'm glad you agreed to do this. It's been a long time coming. And you know, I'll be a little candid. It's taken this break of what is arguably 2 or 3 years before I felt confident to be able to start producing and then releasing content on a more regular fashion. The jump from Master Sergeant, from Gunny to Master Sergeant for me when I really started first doing the podcast was substantial. You know that I know it.
Oh, yeah.
But almost more so for me than others. Maybe that's just my, myopic perspective, but because I'd been out of the Marine Corps for about 8 years until I got back into 3MEF to get regreened, so to speak. Mm-hmm. I felt like there was a lot of ground to recover in comparison to where I was with our peers, in much the same way that mirrors. We're going to go back to this cyclical journey of when I showed up late to the game at Radio Battalion after being stuck in Monterey for an extended duration of time.
You and me both, brother.
But the jump to being a 3-star SEA has been tremendous. And, I've learned so much in such a short period of time. And the thing that I learned is that there's still so much more to go. There's still so much more to learn. There's still so much more to become proficient in. And some of it is organizational skills. Some of it is learning how to actively listen. Some of it is also learning how to be a better communicator.
For sure.
But also be a better advocate, a better champion, and also broadening my purview to the point of discomfort.
I bet.
Because I can no longer be just a SIG and EW guy. You've got to
You've got an umbrella of Oct Fields now.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's been fun. It's been challenging, but it's been fun. One of the parts that I've enjoyed the most is the fact that I get to work with General Glavy and, everything that he represents and the characteristics and the attributes that he brings to the fight daily. I mean, I'm all in, but man, I'm not at that level. It's humbling to see how dedicated they are at the 09 level, what it takes to be successful. We've had our tussles, particularly when I was jumping in on areas where I thought that we as a team were ill-prepared or insufficient. And I came to a better understanding in our discussions of what it was he needed from me. And what he didn't need was for me to do the job of others on the staff. Because ultimately, it's his responsibility. And the conversation centered around occupational field readiness at the time. And he said, Master Guns, I need you to understand something. This isn't E9 business. This is 09 business. Mm-hmm. And he rolled up his sleeves and he got after it. It was a tough but fun lesson to learn. But I told him in the moment, I was like, I needed to hear you say that. And here's why. I've been carrying this at a personal level. The fact that our occupational field readiness wasn't where it needed to be. And so, not that I dropped my pack, but that was just one less rock that I had to carry in my pack.
Yep.
In that regard. Yeah, it's been a great ride so far. It's still to be determined how much longer we'll be together in all of this. There's a lot of uncertainty with slating and appointments and, all of that. But right now, we're in the middle of it and enjoying every minute of it.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, I think that a lot of times, like, people would, kind of ask about nature versus nurture and everything else whenever you're talking about a man like that and how dedicated they are and everything else. And, for lack of a better term, and sound a little like Forrest Gump, sometimes maybe it's both.
Yeah.
And, Olympians don't get there just on pure willpower. Some of them just have the genetics for it and everything. So maybe had that, in his upbringing, and in addition to that, just had some of that just in him from the start.
And for a helicopter pilot, one each, he'll be the first to admit, don't be fooled. He keeps up. That's a helicopter pilot that moves at Mach 880,000. And I've sometimes marveled at how we can go from meeting to meeting, and he transitions from interim authority to test, authority to operate, ATOs and on a network, and getting it through the CSSP and process and all of that from a cybersecurity standpoint, and then shift to space or SIGINT or human. And just the breadth and depth of his understanding is something to behold. And he'll be the first to tell you, none of us are perfect, but man, he puts in the work. It makes me a little hopeful that the things that we're pushing as it pertains to re-engineering the system of systems that creates the talent that we need going forward from zero to hero, there's some value in that, because it's not for the faint of heart. The minute you start attempting to address some of the systemic issues that we've had to endure over our careers in terms of how we allocate those resources and opportunities across the force, the minute you start messing with that, you start to agitate the antibodies. And rightfully so. Change is hard, and you don't want to be haphazard when you go about it. But at the same time, we know what's present is insufficient for what we need going forward. So you got to start somewhere. I've been able to amass a small core group of key players in key nodes, and we're moving out, and we have the level of executive championship necessary to move it forward. But the visit here in Monterey has been exceptional, not just for the opportunity to be back where, kind of we started, but also to be able to interact with the students, be it the Masters of Applied Cyberspace Operations students at MPS, to the young Marine who's going to be the youngest Marine tomorrow, and to hear that he's only 6 months older than my youngest son. I shared that with Elizabeth on the phone today. That was humbling. From Baton Rouge, Louisiana, but also a fellow first platoon mate. I think I have our first platoon T-shirt somewhere still.
I definitely have all of my 4th and 5th platoon T-shirts, and I'll pull them out from time to time and wear them. So every Wednesday, the CO and I go and do PT with a different fire team. And the whole premise of it is to be able to get our ear to the ground, talk to the young devils, see if they have any questions, and then at the same time for us to be able to answer any questions they have about their future, their careers, or even just what's going on with the gate situation on the weekends, or whatever they're worried about. And yeah, it's good to get down there, but I still wear my 4th and 5th platoon t-shirts, and I try to all the time say, hey, swag builds camaraderie. It does. It look at the MARSOC, the SCT Jack. That's tied a group of dudes together that it doesn't matter what generation you're from.
Yeah. And I noticed on your wall today in your office that you had that unauthorized Company H logo that was modified a little bit. And that was the one that when we did the Company H sweatshirts and T-shirts while I was there, and I had an artist kind of take what was the official one and just kind of spruce it up a little bit, kind of hand drew over it. I even made T-shirts for my Topi while I was there in San Antonio.
Yep. They still talk about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the last time I was there, I got that same organization gave me one of their poker chips that had the same logo on it. And of course, I did the same thing at 3MEF. And I was sharing with, was it Sergeant Weaver, that the other Jujitero, that through Origin Maine, the company that Pete Roberts runs and is partnered with Jocko Willink, we made 3MEF rash guards with the idea that you could wear it under your blouse, still be olive drab green, and drop your blouse and you're ready to roll at any point in time.
That's legit.
Sergeant Weaver thought that was pretty cool. We had to do a couple of trials because the way that the shirt material was, as you stretched it, it lightened it up. And so we tried to nail the color perfectly, and we did, but then when you put it on and it stretched, it was too light. And so we ended up having to do a couple of test drives before we finally nailed it. But I think now that they're pushing out another version that's just their own stock model without any design on it, and I think that's a pretty good one to go with. But there's something to be said about the swag, like you said. It has like a unifying component to it.
It does. It used to be, platoons versus each other, and I tell the guides all the time, like, hey, if I'm 3rd platoon guide, I'm going to go talk some shit to the 2nd platoon guide and be like, hey, I think that we can go take y'all out in some paintball this weekend, up in Watsonville or whatever, and start getting some competition going. Start doing some inter-platoon things.
Do they still do paintball around here quite a bit, or?
Up in Watsonville, there's still a joint that's open, but I haven't heard a whole lot about. That's one of my memories. I asked the Marines at every fire team PT, what's one thing that you've done here that you'll remember for the rest of your life, that you think you'll remember for the rest of your life? And one of mine is going out with, some of those, young dudes that were in my platoon. And it was only 4 of us, I think, that went out, and we were playing up against a couple of high school kids and their dad that they just had the top of the line and, the hoppers that are holding all the paintballs,
yep.
The top of the line, fully automatic paintball guns, and we're playing with whatever you can rent there.
Some Titmans, yeah.
And we're trying to use tactics and everything to try to get through. And this one time I'm creeping through the woods, and just each step slow, and I just look over to my left after I heard a branch creak, and there's this kid just got me dead to rights, and it felt like the end of Platoon, where I'm just taking them, just taking paintball after paintball, yelling at the helo as it's flying off. So that's something that I'll never forget. And I was the Lance Corporal, and it was so much fun.
So there was a guy by the name of Stu that he had procured the lease to open up the paintball field on Fort Ord when we were here. And to kind of be the grand opening kickoff, he had hosted a tournament across the services, and ended up being me, Shantz, Baru, Greg Kerr, Ramirez, I think it was Dybert, a few others. Most of them were casuals, 1st platoon kind of chuckleheads, but with some one-offs thrown in here. And we ended up kicking everybody's ass. And a lot of it was just because it was capture the flag. And like a couple of times, Baruch was so fast. He was like a 17,
Yep.
17 flat, 3-miler. He would just drop his gun and run.
Yep.
Grab the flag and run back.
We did that against these kids. Where one time I just handed off my gun to another dude, and I just took off running, went and grabbed the flag, came back, and they were laying down cover fire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a blast. And, and then of course I got into it to the point that I had like 3 or 4 guns, some of which I still have to this day.
Oh man.
But they're in a like one of those Rubbermaid lock boxes, and
way back in the back of the garage under about 2 or 3 other things.
They're in the dungeon right behind where the TV screen is in the basement.
Mm-hmm.
That whole like utilities area is just basic storage for us. We call it the dungeon. I had some kettlebells and stuff in there, but now I have kettlebells all throughout the house, and the jiu-jitsu mats are right outside of there. But yeah, I still have. It's like a bandolier, something like something Chewbacca would wear for you to put extra paintball rounds in to reload your hopper and all of that. We had taken the boys, well, not the boys, my oldest son, to go play paintball in the Dominican Republic while we were out there, but it just wasn't the same. There was something to be said, like you said, a bunch of jarheads getting out there, shooting each other up. Although we did do paintball at Goodfellow, and because the Army had that little mount town facility there on in San Angelo, and they opened it up to us. The only thing that we had to, I don't even think we had to pay for. They had paintballs and the guns. They had everything. We just had to show up and just be nice and clean up after we were done. And we went out there with all the students. I think me and like 2 or 3 of the other instructors kind of hosted it, and we played with them. I brought Enrique out to play with us one time, and it was a blast. Yeah, I don't think we do things like that as often as we should. And of course, being in the Pentagon, we have a few of the junior Marines. I have the admin section there in DCI, and then we have quite a few of the spent com Marines in the Intel division. But when we do get them together, we're usually getting them together at our home, where I'll cook them something, or Liz will cook them something, and we'll just hang out and play, rock band. Rock band, of course. That's our jam. Which I was surprised that you finally picked up the mic there towards the end of the night.
Well,
it took you a while to get warmed up, huh?
Yeah, got to be lubricated. Got to lubricate the vocal cords, right? Before I'm ready to start singing karaoke or to play some rock band.
Well, Derry eventually kind of warmed up to it over time, and Sam, put some country on.
That's right, Derry. That's my boy, Derry.
Yeah, and everything from "I Love This Bar" to you name it. I want to say it was he was singing. I don't know if it was him or maybe somebody else singing "Body Like a Back Road."
Oh man!
And Vicente was like, my youngest son, he was like, "What does he mean by that?" And then Derry just made like these hand gestures. He's like, "Oh, okay, I get it now."
Oh, those curves. Okay.
So how's it been out here for you for this tour?
It's been good. So I didn't ask to come here. I've just kind of always wanted to be the dude in the fight, be the dude like out there doing, and like years ago, I guess the one person I would consider my mentor, like over the other mentors, and there have been many, is Haysby Harrington. And Haysby told me whenever I was a staff sergeant, and he was master guns down there at Company D. He was like, "Hey, like you've got time to be a doer up until staff sergeant. After that, you got to start developing. Then you got to be a supervisor. And then once you pin on master sergeant, pretty much from then on, it's what you can give back to the community, what you can do with the authority that you've earned over your time, and what knowledge you can pass down to the next generation, and be able to raise them up to carry the torch next." So all that to say, I still, as a master gunny, if I could drop a rank and go out and take a team out, I would be all about it, right? But knowing that I can't necessarily be a doer anymore, this has been really rewarding because as I was on my way out, Sean and Kyle and several of the other kind of other master gunnies in our community kind of were like, hey, there's been a huge difference in DLI Marines from when Zach went out and started developing, and then all the way through Willie out there right now and everything else. And if you can keep that onus on, you are warriors, and despite the fact that you're going through some of the hardest educational training and you're going through some of the most collegiate A school in probably the entire Marine Corps, and just like cramming an entire language into your brain in a year and a half, if you can keep the fact that these guys are warriors. And I tell them every single time whenever I do like a pep talk right before everyone's starting class the next day, and I'm like, hey, like if for some reason we have no advanced warning and the Chinese are storming Monterey Bay, this is where they're going to make their landing. Are you ready to pick up a rifle and follow me? And like these devils, they're ready. And it makes me happy about, the future of the Marine Corps. It makes me happy about the future of our AWK field, and about that mindset and that mentality that they're ready to go through. Whether it's learning a language, whether it's going on to follow-on training at Goodfellow, or whether it's deploying and actually going out and taking lives and saving lives.
Yeah, one of the data points that came up was how atrocious our numbers are with regard to retaining these Marines into their second tour. And we spend so much national treasure to get them up to speed, and then we just walk them out the door. Like, thanks for playing, but your service is no longer required. And so, one of the main driving factors behind talent management is the idea that we've got to be a little bit better in how we assign and employ these Marines, particularly in accordance with their capabilities, and understanding that we have an obligation and responsibility to ensure that we uphold our end of the bargain in terms of what we promise them and their parents, their families.
Yeah, they need to feel that worth. They need to feel like I did my job, as opposed to I learned Korean and then got fapped out to be a gate guard for 6 months because I didn't have a sign-in bonus or whatever. So, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if you caught that little blob that I put in the top of my Centurion placemat about Ikigai, and the idea that you want to do something that you're good at, but you also want it to be something that the world needs, as well as what you can get paid for and what you love.
I actually wrote the Venn diagram down because I liked it that much. Yeah, what we love is on the top of the 4-part Venn diagram. On the right is what is needed. On the bottom is what can be paid for, and on the left is what we are good at. And then where what we're good at and love oversect, there's passion. Where what we love and what is needed oversects is mission. Where what we're good at and what we can be paid for oversects into profession. And then over on the bottom right, what is needed and what can be paid for is vocation. And then, because I saw that and I was like, that's legit. That's me. I'm that dot right in the middle.
Well, so that's the idea of that placemat, because all the dots in there are supposed to be like waypoints. But what I'm attempting to do when I use that placemat with the intended target audience is to bring them in without telling them, for them to come to the realization on their own that it's a worksheet, and the idea that we actually want to draw a line from that node to that center point of that diagram, because it's the same dot, it's just a little bit bigger. But when General Glavey fell for it in a good way, and but there's a missing component to it. So if you only have 3 of the 4, and this is part of the voiceover. So if you only have what you love, what you're good at, and what you can be paid for, there's satisfaction there, but there's a feeling of being useless because it's not necessarily what the world needs. Now, if what you have is what you're good at, what you can be paid for, and what the world needs, but you don't love it, you're comfortable, but there's still this feeling of emptiness.
Mm-hmm.
And then kind of moving in the counterclockwise direction, if you have what you love and you are also providing what the world needs and you're being paid for it, but you're not good at it, there's a sense of uncertainty associated with that because it's almost as if you feel like an imposter.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you could love something, the world can need it, right? And you could be good at it, but you're not getting paid for it.
Yep.
That causes some problems too. Got to hit center mass on those things. I found this book that was about this topic, and that's how I kind of got introduced to the concept, but it was centered around the blue zones of this earth, one of which was Okinawa, Japan, and the understanding that the way in which that culture and that community interacts and treats each other and how they revere their elders and has led to a disproportionate number of elderly to a degree in which it was declared one of the blue zones. And I think there was a Netflix special dropped not too long ago that kind of touched on some of the same stuff. But our time in Okinawa was magnificent. Tough when we got there and tough getting there. But once there,
Mm-hmm.
it was everything. And a lot of it was in how we interacted with the locals and put down roots and connected. And as we're looking at this slate for this year's new Master Guns and who's going where and all of that, there's been a couple of emails in the discussion kind of attempting to reinvigorate the idea that Oki's not that bad.
Oh, yeah. I've seen them. Yeah.
You know, Hinchliff and Jen Scott and myself, you know, just kind of, you know, throwing it out there. Like, it's not for the faint of heart, but if you can stomach it, man. And I've gotten some phone calls from some of the selectees and a few others kind of asking my thoughts, right, for whatever that's worth. And you know, and I pushed them, challenged them, like, you know, nothing's changed. Still main focus of effort. Like, you want to be relevant, put it on your list. Let's see what you got, right? To whom much is given, much is expected. And challenging them, knowing who I'm talking to and having known them for years, digging at them at what I've seen work over time. And it'll be interesting to see who actually gets the nod, in my opinion, in a good way, because it's just a magnificent opportunity for growth. You know, and it's different now than when I was there in 2016 to 20, because when I showed up in 16, I was the only 2691 on the island as a master sergeant. Now there's the MiG, the MEF, the division, Intel Battalion had a few 2600s, although not 91s, and then the MAW had a master sergeant out there, and the MEB. There's plenty of us represented, but it's interesting to see how when I challenged some of these individuals, how quickly they were attempting to wiggle and squirm.
So don't tell Salome and don't release this until after I've got orders, but I'm a mover this summer. And I was like, you know, North Carolina, and then, you know, possibly Meade. And then after that, like Okinawa, because like I said, at you know, when we started, I'm ready to get in the fight. So wherever the fight is, that's where I want to be.
You want to be relevant. I mean, and the other thing about it was you're in striking distance of so much.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we stopped in Taipei once. Liz used to go to Singapore all the time. You want to go to Korea. You know, we did that quite a few times. And mainland Japan, I don't even know how many times. There's just so much to do, so much to see. One of the tricks that we picked up, or I picked up, Liz just kind of would laugh at me whenever I would do it, is that when I was interacting with the locals and there wasn't a gringo or a gaijin to be found, I would start the conversation off in Spanish. And then we would meet in the middle in English. And they treated me so differently than if I'd have just walked up and started speaking English to them. It's just funny to see that distinction amongst them. They love Mexican food. but they don't have any there.
Oh man,
They try, but it's always it's more miss than hit. Let me get another one of those 4-6s.
Yeah. Yeah, Mexican food is my jam. I can eat Mexican food probably 5 out of every 7 days.
I don't know if I told you last night. Maybe I did. How we used to do language immersion excursions at the Spanish course to Benihana's because of all the Mexican cooks there. As long as we spoke awesome. Nothing but Spanish, we were we could go get a long lunch there at Benihana's, and it was always great. What it looks like that's Vince. Let me check see what he's got.
Uh-oh.
I shot him the itinerary for tomorrow, 16:30 pregame, 1700 social hour. He says, pre-gaming before you speak, you crazy.
Like, no crazier than normal. That's how we do's. I can't wait to see Vince.
Yeah, I think I had one drink, no, maybe two, before I spoke at 2nd Radio Battalion's ball last year. It was all right. It actually kind of helped with the nerves.
Yeah. Like before an OPI.
Yeah.
It's like one of the best things you can do. just a little bit, just to, lubricate the vocal cords.
When's the last time you DLPT'd?
Last March.
How'd you do? Do you want to share?
I dropped off of my 3.3 soapbox to a 2+3. But I just texted the DLPT guy yesterday and said, hey, I need a DLPT in Iraqi and MSA. And I'm looking at late January for Iraqi and then early February for MSA. But hoping to pull my 3s back out again.
Yeah, the last time I did it, I got 2+4. And I haven't done an OPI, which is great because according to Ms. Sharoof, that makes me eligible for an advanced course.
There you go. There you go.
If I'd have gotten 3-4, they probably wouldn't have agreed to it. But I haven't had a language training event since 14, 15.
Yeah, I'm trying to think back to my last one. It was probably pre-MARSOC, and I got there in January of 11. So,
admittedly, it's a lot easier in Spanish.
At least there's Telemundo and whatnots.
Yeah, there's Breaking Bad. I mean, like, the list goes on and on.
But at the same time, like I can YouTube look up Arabic live news and pull up Al Jazeera at any time too. So
talk to me about the tattoo.
Which one?
Your most recent addition.
Well, so Willie and Sean showed me after they had gotten theirs, and I knew that you the way Sean explained it to me was that him, Willie, and Sonny were going to get this tattoo and that you were on board. And Sean said, wait, call Liz first.
No, it was Deuce that said, call Liz first.
Oh, okay.
Because Deuce knows Liz, and he's like, I don't want that woman coming after me. That's 4'11" of just a bad time if she finds me after something like this. And I was kind of offended. I was like, I can't believe that you would disrespect my gangster like that. but
I think that it's because Deuce asked you right beforehand, like, do you have any tattoos? And you said, like, that was your first one?
He knew I did. He already knew that I didn't have any tattoos.
Oh.
But yeah. It's my only tattoo. Yeah.
So you, Willie, Sean, and Sonny are the OGs on having the Master Gunny tattoo on the left wrist. And then, since then, I think Luke Martin, Brad Campbell, trying to think of who else. Derry. And then whenever I was at the last conference, like Sean had been like, dude, you got to get one. I was like, okay. And so I hit up Deuce. Deuce has done probably, I would say, 90% of the ink on my body.
Really?
Yeah. So this one up here on my right shoulder, I had gotten the Eagle Globe and Anchor on the night of boot camp graduation in August, or I went to boot camp in August. So in maybe November of 99. And then at Arabic graduation, I got the Death Before Dishonor in Arabic down here. And Deuce was like, dude, check it out. Because I was I was a gunny at the time, and we were some of the amongst the first. I wouldn't say like some of the first, but amongst the first of MARSOC dudes to go up to Hagerstown and get Mode 1 certed. And Deuce and I were there for Mode 1 air cert, and in a hotel room in Hagerstown, Maryland. Deuce is like, let's take a piece of everything you've done over your entire Marine Corps career and tie it all into one piece and turn it into this big thing. So I've got like the rounds that we fired at every funeral detail whenever I was part of the funeral detail at DLI, the wreaths of knowledge from the DLI crest, and then the concho pearls from San Antonio 2nd Radio Battalion, Company D. I've got the trident from the Mew, the MARSOC spade, and then some headphones thrown in there, some OIF, OEF. It's like everything I had done up to that point. And now we got a couple little add-ons. Got to add on an H for Company H, and maybe a couple little things. But yeah, Deuce did like this amazing job of just tying a little piece of every emblem of everywhere I'd been into this one thing. And then the latest, and then of course Deuce did the SCT jack on my foot while we were in Herat, Afghanistan. A lot of dudes had gotten it on their bicep. I think the original 3 was Willie, Sean, and Q that had gotten it on their bicep, and then Deuce had one on his foot, and I was like, that's badass. So.
So you did it on your foot?
Yeah. So it's been 7 years. So Deuce, after making some of his barracks hooch out in Afghanistan, while I'm sucking on Deuce's barracks hooch, that he had to like order some yeast packets and mixed it with some of the local juices and whatnot. Yeah, Deuce tattooed up my foot while we were out in Afghanistan in 2012.
Wow, what a story! Did you know that the chief warrant officers of our OC field are also doing something similar?
No, I didn't.
Yeah, so it started with Cherubini.
Well, that makes sense. It would start with Nate.
Yep. And he's got it's a skeleton key intersected with a lightning bolt. And
like Aces? Like Aces thing? Do you know what it looks like? Oh, you got it. Okay. I think I've seen that on Nate's arm before.
Yeah.
You're talking about like...
So now there's several of them that have the same thing. And they did it at the other ones did it at the SIG and EW requirements conference.
Okay.
Which I thought was cool. And, it's been almost like a sine wave of the cohesion or the camaraderie between our staff and COs and our chief warrant officers within the occupational field. And it's one area in which I've attempted to bolster and reinforce. But for you, which chief warrant officers did you kind of look up to coming up, and which ones have you stayed kind of in contact? And then where and when you had the opportunity, did you kind of look out for the ones coming up behind us?
Well, I would say like looking up to, like they were just those dudes, like all the way up until probably like, I'll backtrack on that statement. Dennis Weaver was amazing. Dennis Weaver, whenever I first got to MARSOC, he was like a huge supporter of everything that we were doing and like this ultimate facilitator, and just went out of his way to bend over backwards and everything. And like Justin Noe, amazing. Almost everyone that I saw at MARSOC prior to MARSOC though. Prior to 2000, like January 2011, I show up at MARSOC. Anything prior to that, they were just those other dudes that were doing SME things out there, or SEMO things, or whatever the case may be. But since then, like I look up to like all of them. I've never had any sort of butting heads with anybody besides maybe someone making a statement, at like an OAG that says maybe we should just do away with radio recon or something like that. You know who you are. But other than just some statements that are made that should not be made in front of the audience that they're made in front of, I have no problems with any of our warrant officers. Some of them that I still look up to, Jeff Boone, that dude is a rock star.
Yeah, I love Jeff.
That dude is an absolute rock star. Like Nate Cherubini, rock star. Like, and I look at all of our, like almost all of them. Trevor Whitehead, dude's amazing.
Yeah.
And he got a shit station and he let everybody know that he did, but just amazing dudes all around. And I don't know, I love our 2602s.
Why didn't you ever put it a package in?
To me, and as sad as this seems, and as simplistic as this is, the flat black are the Jedis, and the commissioned officers are the Siths, and these other dudes operate in the gray. And even knowing that there would probably be more retirement and everything afterwards, I don't like the jobs that they do. I like to be a doer. I like to be a team guy. I like to be a part of the team and a part of the mentoring and a part of the guiding and a part of the everything else. But I don't necessarily need to be, the face of anything. I feel like everything that I need to accomplish, I can do behind the scenes and let someone else be the face of it. I need no credit for anything that I do. Several people told me I should put in a warrant officer package. Several people told me I should put in a MGySgt package. Several people said all those things, but it just never appealed to me. Chasing that bursting bomb. That this is where I need to be. This is where I envision myself, and I made it despite some adversity.
I think we've all had a little bit of that.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about that. Without getting into specifics, when you find yourself in those circumstances, what do you do? What's your plan? Who do you reach out to? How do you handle it? What's the calculus?
The list of people that I reach out to is long and distinguished. Typically whenever I find myself in some hot spot or whatever, then, I'll call Sean, I'll call Q, Sam Carter, John Scoggins, like, I'm in a almost daily chat with, a list of dudes that have been like this and the generation right before us, of just, I don't know how to say it besides, I tell the young devil dogs, we walk in the shadows of giants. And to me, I feel like I walked alongside of some of them. And you'll never know these giants, but like these are dudes that I walked alongside of, and that I aspire to do as good or better than they did. Shep, Eric Bakewell, I already mentioned John Scoggins, Kevin Simmons, Kyle Cornett, Nick Watson, Q Rendina, Roger Esteban, Sam Carter, Willie Pasqua, James Brennis, Deuce, John Stansel, Sean Nicow, and like I reach out to that crew that I hold like as part of the closest dudes to me, and then beyond that, if it's a break glass, then I'll call up Haysby Harrington, I'll call up Joe Black, Crawdaddy, just some of those dudes that I always looked up to, and always Dennis Weaver, some of those dudes that I always just drew on their sage advice whenever the time came for needing that help out of a hot spot.
How do you think I handled the discussion today with the young Marines?
Oh, I think it was awesome. Yeah, they were eating it up, and I could tell, by looking at faces of the young Marines, that you're throwing out some things that it's like a zinger, right? It's like here's a line from Citizen of the Republic that you don't get about, doer of great deeds, or, whatever the thing may be, or you're throwing out a zinger of, this, that, or the other. Like, things that allude back to, something that we've probably read from our generation and that a lot of, our generation has read. But they were like, oh man, I need to figure out where that came from or whatever else. But at the same time, really relatable. And sometimes I feel like I don't have that necessarily like the way that you do of being able to keep it old school, but bring in some of the the hip terms. I mean, I'm jiggy with it.
There's a new movie that dropped on Netflix with I'm drawing a blank right now. Bokeem Woodbine, and I can see his face. The redheaded stand-up comedian Bill Burr, and it's called Old Dads or something to that effect. And one of the other dads that's on it, he plays a phenomenal villain. Name escapes me, but the other old dad plays a phenomenal villain in Boardwalk Empire, and he's doing that, trying to relate to the youngsters, and it's just so awkward the way that he does it. But for me, it's been somewhat natural because I'm still a gamer, and so I'm on Discord with sometimes kids that are the same age as my kids, and it's been surprising how many of those youngsters that I interact with while I'm gaming, when I do have the time, which is not that often, but when I do, how quick they are to respond and share. Yeah. And they've seen me game with my boys, and a couple of them know us by our screen handles, and they're like, hey, is your son going to be on later, or I saw your son on earlier, that kind of stuff, and so I kind of become like a surrogate of some sort, surrogate uncle, maybe not a surrogate dad, but and then they'll ask questions, like invariably they'll find out that I'm a Marine and what's that like,
Can't hide
and
it.
and so on and so forth. And we were hosting because the boys wanted to get really good at a very competitive game mode within one of the games that we were playing. And so we ended up hosting like workshops, and I would bring in like ringers, dudes that were getting paid to play professionally, and I mean, they would be kind of like the mentors. And because of the way in which you could set up Discord, you can actually shoulder surf while someone was playing and provide them in real time, almost like when you're going through a shoot house, the instructor's walking through with you what it is that you're doing right, what it is you're doing wrong, what you need to be thinking about, so on and so forth. Yeah. And then you could record it and then rewind it, do playback. I mean, all of those things are available. And for me, kind of driving the point that we have still failed miserably to capitalize on some of the technology that's available in order to elevate our skill sets and decision making more than anything. And so at the end of this month, I'm flying out to Orlando for the Inter-Service Industry Training Simulation and Education Conference, and I'm going to meet some guys down there that are working some augmented reality capabilities, particularly as it pertains to the electromagnetic spectrum. And they've developed some tools and some capabilities that are integrated from the beginning with the training associated with employment of those capabilities. And I'm interested to see what they have to offer. And I only found these gentlemen, this company, because of the work that we've been doing at DCI with Apple and others to get a little bit more competition into some of the platforms, the tablets that we're running, as well as to potentially diversify how we're sourcing silicon for our peripherals and our compute and storage at the edge going forward, so that we're no longer exclusively relying upon overseas manufacturers.
Yep.
And Apple's making a big play to start to do that, particularly down at the 3 nanometer level. And I don't know if enough of us sufficiently comprehend what 3 nanometers means in comparison to 5 or anything else along those lines. But there's also the aspect that with their proprietary silicon, Apple's got their main CPU with their own GPU with an additional engine called the neural engine that's optimized for AI and ML. And as I understand it right now, there's very few vendors within the military industrial complex that are specifically coding capabilities, solutions to optimize off of that third engine.
Yeah.
At the 3 nanometer level. So what would that look like? Instead of taking a Lenovo or a ThinkPad or a GTAC or something like that, here's a fully tricked out MacBook Pro. Give it a whirl. Maybe it's not as good, right? What if it is?
Yeah, but most likely, yeah.
What if it is? And then, you tie that up with some of maybe the other vendors that are building things that Apple would never build, like a software-defined receiver.
Mm-hmm.
And we've kind of settled on some of that stuff, but at least for the time frame. And I think one of the primary companies that we're with right now is putting out a phenomenal product. Otherwise, some of our alumni wouldn't be signing on for them. But I'm more interested in seeing how can we do things a little bit differently.
Yeah. I mean, innovation is awesome. It doesn't matter where it comes from. And I don't know. I've always been a firm believer of FITFO, right? So it doesn't matter what piece of gear is handed to me and what capabilities you say it has. First, I'm going to start with reading the owner's manual. I'm going to read the manual because I feel like that's a step that a bunch of our junior Marines have been lacking.
Yeah.
Once you read the manual and you understand how it's designed to work, then you can start playing and innovating and figuring out the other things it can do that these dudes didn't think of. And then you can give feedback to whoever produced it and try to figure out how to take that and build it up to its whatever the next echelon of capability that it has is. And I don't know. And then most important above all of that is to not keep it inside one brain, to put it into some document that can be shared with other people so that they understand there's more capabilities than what it says there are in the manual. Start with the manual. Everyone should start with the manual. And one of the superstars coming up in our community, Sarasoli, I taught him that as a sergeant, and he says it has paid off dividends. And he's over at Marsoc right now. And
I know who you're talking about. I interacted with him recently. He's on my whiteboard. He's on my list of future centurions.
He is an up-and-comer and so smart. So smart.
He's all right. Don't build his head up.
All right.
No,
he's okay.
He wouldn't be on my board for nothing.
He's above a 5 out of 10, definitely. But he was like, it's paid off dividends. Whenever I get a piece of gear, I read the manual now, and that answers so many of the questions of instead of having to try to fumble your way through things. And I don't know. And furthermore, the last step, and I'm still going through this with my staff here at DLI, right, is what are you doing not only to ensure your success, but to ensure your replacement's success? So it's not like I can just work my way through, let's say, a Marine Corps ball behind a curtain, but next year, whenever the next person has never seen anything having to do with Marine Corps ball planning, how are they going to take what I provide them and it's a key to success for them? And then they can improve upon that. And we just keep on getting better and better. So all I have to say, innovation is great.
I was kind of over the moon when I saw the product reveal for the Reality Pro, the Vision Pro that Apple was getting ready to drop. And I asked our rep that we've been working with, what's it take to get one of those? They're like, oh, Master Guns, that's going to be hard to do. I was like, just interested. And that's when he told me, he said, I know who's at the front of the line. I'll connect you with them. And that's one of the reasons why we're going down to Orlando I want to get my hands on one of those.
Yeah.
Before they're dropped for everybody. But I think that there's a legitimate application for what it is that we do in being able to visualize the electromagnetic spectrum.
Yeah. That was like one of my dreams as a young corporal is what if I could just put on some, and I'll just say it now because they exist now, but they didn't back then. What if I could just put on some Google glasses and look around and I just see signals and what, like all around me and what frequency they are and everything else and be able to exploit that.
Yeah. Give me time.
Yeah.
Give me time. There's a video that Enrique sent me that showcases how they had used a system of sensors that included digital cameras as well as Wi-Fi nodes, and it was able to correlate and fuse between the cameras and the RF propagation in and around its vicinity from the routers, that it could extrapolate where human beings were based upon their movements and the impact of their movements on the RF energy in and around them. And so that
Legit.
it could use the routers to be cameras.
Yeah. That's something you got to be an outside the box thinker to be able to even conceptualize.
Yeah, I'm looking for it. I'll message him. He'll hit me back. How much longer you got left? Which is a dangerous question. I get it, but how much longer you got left?
There's been several people who have talked about, like, I've got, these things that it's dependent on and everything else. And, same for me. I've got 4 legs in my table, right? Table sits on 4 legs. Am I relevant? Am I, do I love the Marine Corps? Does the Marine Corps love me? And is my family okay with it? Those are the 4 things that matter to me. My boys are 22, 20, and 18. And it doesn't matter where I am or what I'm doing. Like, we're going to have the same relationship. If I get back to North Carolina, that's great because I'll be close to them. But other than that, like, it doesn't matter where I go or what I do. And, Salome has a way in, but there ain't a ring on it yet. So, but it matters.
How would she feel if you went to Okinawa?
I think that she would be unhappy about it, but I think that in the end, she'd be fine with it. Whether she decided that, because of her job or whatever else, she couldn't go and we had to distance it for a minute or whatever. Either way, I think she'd be fine with it. And my boys, they'd probably love coming and visiting in Japan. So am I relevant? I feel like I'm still relevant, even though, I've been at DLI in an unclassified environment for, the past 2.5 years. I get into a skiff when I can. I get on the actual things that I feel like are completely relevant to our job whenever I can, and go to whatever conferences I can. And some of those things that other people are like, oh, this is like catch up number 5. I've done this 5 times or whatever, and I'm like, this is my first time hearing this, so it is still relevant, despite the fact that you've heard it 4 other times just because you're in the NCR or whatever. So
that's why I never begrudge that, but I do advocate vigorously for Rita heads.
Yeah, brevity and wave tops, and like for those dudes that can't get into a skiff daily or can't get to a classified environment, like printouts and have everyone that can't get to a skiff like come, a few hours ahead of time. Hey, read through all this, and then you'll be caught up, and then we can get to work, as opposed to, sitting there and having to listen to briefs where officers are a little long-winded. Yeah. So, am I relevancy? Do I love the Marine Corps? Does the Marine Corps love me? I feel like the Marine Corps loves me no matter what. So, I mean, that's not a huge issue. But am I still happy with the Marine Corps? And I think I'm happy with the Marine Corps as long as I feel like I'm still of value. So relevancy kind of plays into that one too. And then, I mean, we already talked about family and my boys. I don't know. They're my goal in life. If I do nothing else in this entire world besides leave 3 men behind who are better than me, I have accomplished my goal in life.
How hard is that to do that, being geographically separated?
Oh, it's hard. I mean, most of the texts with my 22-year-old, Eddie, are about fantasy football. And like, that's just something that we kind of have tied in together and everything. And, you know, me being able to tell him about, you know, who you got playing this week and, you know, us going back and forth and, you know, talking about things. Or, you know, Caleb, my middle son, so Eddie has graduated with a mechanical engineering degree from UNC State, or from UNC Charlotte, and is now working as a GS civilian with NavAir over in Cherry Point. And yeah, that's our normal thing, is talking about that. I'm going to see him for Christmas, which, you know, is awesome. It's the first time I've seen him since I made it out to North Carolina last summer for Willie Pasqua's retirement. Caleb, my middle son, is a junior at NC State, also going through engineering. But we talk a few times a week, mostly text messages, because that's just their generation and everything. But just whenever we get together, this kid is like Catan master. Like, we play board games, we play Catan, and Caleb is like the Catan master. I've never seen anyone as good at this game as this kid. He is awesome. And then Maddie, my youngest, he's a senior this year at Swansboro High School, and he is little Mr. Philosopher. He's just all about like searching for answers. He is an answer seeker, and yeah, I can't wait to see him. I'm gonna fly from, me and Salome are gonna fly from California, and then they're gonna fly from North Carolina and meet me at my mom's place over in Austin, and have a good time for a few days over around Christmas time. Looking forward to it.
Click that and press play.
What they did is they had, a camera looking at a space with people in it. That's sort of like coming in from one eye. The other eye is the radio signals, so sonar from the Wi-Fi router. And they just learned to predict, like, this is where the human beings are. Then they took away the camera. So all the AI had was the language of radio signals bouncing around a room. And this is what they're able to reconstruct.
Holy shit.
Real-time 3D pose estimation, right? So suddenly AI has turned every Wi-Fi router into a camera that can work in the dark, specially tuned for tracking living beings.
and then at the end of the video, Ron Swanson just throws his monitor into the dumpster. I love it. So I was told by whenever I was at 2nd Radio Battalion, I was the S3T chief. I think I was doing that about the same time as you interviewed Sean. And I was told by Tony Sarasoli and Joe Lewis, who are like 2 of my superstars over in the S3D, they were like, "You are the Marine Ron Swanson."
Why is that?
I don't know. I think I'm pretty direct. I'm pretty just like, no flowers, no politicizing anything. Do this, and that is all. And then I'll walk out of the room. In the end, our job isn't to produce intelligence. It's to operationalize intelligence. And I feel like that's one of the places where we lack a little bit of, across the force as SIGINTers and as intelligence professionals, is operationalizing that intelligence and getting it to the SIPR level where it can be operationalized and not stripping away all of the EEIs that are shareable. So
Yeah.
we can get there. And we've made leaps and bounds from when we were young devils. We've made leaps and bounds to operationalize intelligence from what it used to be was, oh, there's this thing going to happen, and it just came from behind a curtain, and it was like, a yellow canary passed underneath the curtain. Now there's at least a little bit more of the background, and a little bit more of the, not the confidentiality, but more of the oomph behind, for reals, that's passed along with that to whoever the decision maker is in the process. Because in the end, that's all our primary goal is to reduce the uncertainty of whatever that ground force commander is, so he can make the right decisions.
No doubt. So something I was kind of chewing on recently that I wanted to institute when I started bringing this thing back is kind of like this idea of tag you're it. So I challenge you to come on the podcast, have a conversation, sit down, drink some brews. We've done that. Now it's your opportunity to tag who's next. Who do I go after, and why?
Who do you go after? So I'm going to call someone like completely, probably outside of any scope that you've had thus far. And I'm going to say like Matt Ham. He's been a long time actually competing for the longest time at MARSOC. Matt Ham, about to pin on Master Sergeant, and he's got a lot of adversity, both from outside of the Marine Corps, inside of the Marine Corps. He's also got a lot of wisdom. He's also got a lot of bluntness, and he's one of my good friends, but good dude. And he's not really someone that's super skylined in our community, but yeah, just one of the best people you ever know. Complete family man, more kids than you can shake a stick at. Whether they're his, whether he married into them, or whether he produced the seed for and loves them all the same. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of your other like typical, because I've listened to every podcast. Your other typical, like if I were to go back and talk to Sergeant Rooke, there's probably two things that I would tell myself. I would number one say, plan for, don't plan on, but plan for branches and sequels. Because Sergeant Rooke had planned his life in one direction. And it was, this completely staying married, completely family man, completely being with his boys 24/7 and everything else kind of life. And whenever that started to crumble, it kind of crumbled my life. And so it's not necessarily like you need to plan for an alternate and a branch or a sequel, but you need to plan in case that happens. So I would never want to see, some young devil dog in our MOS or in our career field just have this one solid thing that this is all it's going to be, and just to have alternatives just in case. Like, you want to commit, and you want to commit 100% to whatever it is, but not commit so much that it crushes your life if something happens that is outside your control. Number two, serenity prayer. Lord, help me control the things that I can, and help me just accept the things that I cannot change, right? Those two lines out of that serenity prayer. So those are the two things that I would go back and tell my sergeant self. I'm trying to think of any other like normal top game throwbacks. I can't think of any.
So I got a new one, and it's called Worthy Rivals. As you were coming up, looking to the left and right of you, who did you measure yourself up against?
I measure myself up against Willie and Sean, and like now Kyle, and like Sean and Kyle are like a little generation above us, like a little generation in front of us. But like whenever Sean stands up at the OAG and every colonel shuts their fucking mouth because Sean has something to say, it's like All right, Sean.
I see you, boo.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But so Willie went to Company D first, and I went to Second Radio Battalion first, and then Willie's still never been to a radio battalion, but I went to Company D afterwards, and then like, you know, I went to go replace Willie at MCD. I'm like, all right, Willie got this badass business card that's got the, you know, this, that, and the other. I'm like, I'm going to add a QR code to our thing. I'm going to one up Willie on this or whatever. No, but like Willie, like, shoot, we were talking about Chris Taylor earlier and about him winning the
Halo tournament.
Yeah, the Halo tournament way back in the day and everything. But whenever Chris Taylor first showed up to Marine Corps Detachment, you know, at DLI, I was his fire team leader when he first showed up. But Chris Taylor is one of those other dudes that he just like rocked out language the entire time. And I'm proud to have remained proficient through my entire time, but not the same way that Chris did. It's everyone. I would say worthy rivals, Willie. Probably Willie. And Willie's like my homie and my brother. And I think we slept in the same hammock one night. so
If that tells you anything.
so pretty close homie.
Yeah.
But yeah. I love the competition, and I love the friendship and the brotherhood and everything. Q, Brandina, another one. Me and Q used to work, at desks that we could high five each other. Just great dudes. I am so proud of the generation that I came up through and that I came up with, and of the dudes that I learned from, and that maybe I was able to lend a hand whenever they needed help, or that I was able to do whatever I could for them because they did so much for me.
I think our group is tighter than the groups that went before us.
Yeah.
Maybe it's technology, maybe it's personality, maybe it's generational. I can't call it, but there is a greater sense of unity and camaraderie,
yeah,
amongst us than maybe those that went before us. I could be wrong. It just feels that way. Some of it I've had to begrudgingly accept has been the idea that there's this digital bonfire for us that has fostered a level of cohesion and identity. And I still get embarrassed when Marines tell me, I know who you are, Master Guns. I listen to your podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Because like that was never the intent. The intent was born out of the idea that I just didn't want to suck.
Yeah.
I wanted to figure out what worked and what didn't. And for the Marines that I started to interview, I started off with a core group that I was extremely comfortable with because we'd known each other for years. And then I started branching out with guys that I wasn't as comfortable with, but still saw something in them that I wanted to get to know them a little bit better. But when I dropped the episode with Sergeant Moreno,
mm-hmm.
The intent behind it was to demonstrate how, as a master sergeant or just as a staff and CO, we need to be engaged and involved in our junior Marines' growth and development, and what maybe not right, but somewhat right looks like in terms of how we treat them, how we engage with them, how we interact with them, how we connect. I mean, unfortunately, I don't know if enough of us genuinely appreciate or exploit or capitalize on that element of the Marine Corps, is that it's not just a fucking job.
No.
Right? It's more than that.
That soldier joined the Army. That sailor joined the Navy. that airmen joined the Air Force. We became Marines. It's different.
And there's this aspect of the cohesion, the identity, the cult-like aspect of our culture being our greatest strength. And I remember when the Army came out with the Army of One, and the Spanish corollary to that was Yo soy el Army, which, we just thought was so fucking cheesy.
Do it back to be all you can be. Like, that was it. That was the one.
One of the things that I keep circling back to is we're never alone.
Yeah.
You've taken the oath. You've gone through the ordeal. You've become part of something greater that no one can ever take that away from you. And Liz kind of gets a kick out of how I interact with old jarheads that I meet, when we're out in town or on leave or whatever. And I love hearing their stories.
Yeah. Oh man, I love some old timers. And Sal will get on me sometimes whenever I'll just sit there and like talk to old timers for a while. But like, go back to your point, it doesn't matter if it's 3:00 in the morning and that you're a sergeant who got out 2 years ago and was one of my devils. Like, whenever you got a bottle in your hand and a gun in the other hand and you need someone to talk you off the ledge, I'm there. Like, we're there. You're never alone. Yeah, absolutely.
Tell me who you walk with. I'll tell you who you are. Thanks for tuning in. And with that, we're out.